Well then, this mini transfer window closes tomorrow, but it doesn't look like Newcastle United are going to make any signings in that small time that's left. I would definitely say that things are going to start rolling a mere 6 days later when the transfer window reopens. We know that Eddie Howe will want his new players in before pre-season. You've got the PSR deadline, of course, in that time as well, where Newcastle United are expected to swoop down like an eagle and pinch a couple of players like was done to us last season when we were in PSR trouble. There is a few clubs that will have to sell before that deadline. However, it looks like Newcastle United have finally decided on 2 midfielder futures. We'll take a look at that. Have they been working behind the scenes for a Liverpool midfielder to replace one of these players? And the Joao Pedro situation. That could drag on, folks, as it looks like there's a bid from Saudi. Have they bid a lot more than what Newcastle United were prepared to pay? Or, if you look at it differently, Brighton are in for another striker. Does that open the door for Newcastle? Let's go. Hi everybody, welcome to the Toon Review. This is your Newcastle United latest news. My name is Paul, and we will start off with the 2 midfielders that it looks like Newcastle have finally decided their futures, and that of course is Joe Willock and Sean Longstaff. You probably would have known that even if it wasn't written on the bottom there, because they've both had very, very poor seasons. If we start off with Joe Willock. Now, Joe did fantastically well when he first came to the club, of course. Really rescued us in a dire situation under Steve Bruce. Performed brilliantly, scored loads of goals. But his career with Newcastle United since then has kind of tapered away. There's been some nasty injuries which have kept him out for long periods of time. But he had his opportunity to come back last season, made quite a few substitute appearances. And for me, if you're Eddie Howe, what you're looking for from Joe Willock coming off the bench is a bit of explosive performance. You know, come on, really give Eddie a headache as to say, wow, he's really pushing for a first-team start. But you never got that impression from Joe Willock. You never saw him really bust a gut. And maybe psychologically he was worried about the injury, but as time went on, you kind of got the same performance from Joe when he just offered little impact on the pitch. He got a big opportunity when Joe Linton was missing at the end of the season. But again, even when he started games, there was little bits there of previous Willock, but not enough. And certainly not enough to convince the manager that, you know, he's going to be banging on the door for a first-team place next season. I think the time is probably now to sell Joe Willock. And there is interest from a couple of Premier League teams who happen to both be in London. Of course, we had the Fulham rumours. Was that going to happen with Munoz? Was there going to be a sort of player swap deal? Nothing came of that. But Crystal Palace are now showing a very, very big interest in Joe Willock. Valuation of around £25 million. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Is there an opportunity here to do a deal with Gahey if Palace come in for Joe Willock? Now, Newcastle United have said before that they want to do deals separately, not involving players going one way and the other. But this could be different. You know, we know that Gahey isn't going to command that massive transfer fee that he did last season. It's probably going to be around 40 million quid. If the Joe Willock situation is 25 million quid, then could there be Joe Willock plus money for Mark Gahey? It would seem to me that that would be a pretty straightforward deal. And certainly not the haggling over the price that there was last season. And I don't think Newcastle United are going to go down that avenue anyway. You know, haggling on with Crystal Palace for God knows how long and miss out on the player again. But I think a move back to London would be good for Joe. I know it would be a bit disappointing to lose him, especially after he showed so much potential when he first came here. But he did say in 2023 that the opportunity to go back to London, if it was there, he'd probably take it in future years. This, for me, is the opportunity to take it, providing a team comes in for him. It's back home to London, and I think Joe Willock would probably thrive playing for somebody like Crystal Palace. He'd get regular first-team football, and I think, you know, he could really start to get his career off the ground again and start building up to being the player that he was when he first came to us. So that's an opportunity for Joe Willock, I think, rather than a disappointment. I think to go back to London and play for a club like Palace, who've got fanatical support. We know what they're like. I think he'd do really well there. The other player, of course, is Sean Longstaff, who, let's face it, guys, has not been great for quite some time now. He did hit heights, under Rafa and everything like that, and the £50 million valuation for Man United all those years ago. But since then, it's just drifted away into the sunset. I don't think Sean is good enough. I've mentioned that many, many times, and a lot of Newcastle United fans do agree with that. I think his performances on the pitch have been dreadful this season. Maybe not early doors. He did get some decent ratings for us, early doors in the season, but then it's just tapered off to the point where he can't even get on the pitch now. Eddie's not even playing him. There's other players ahead of him. There's Lewis Miley. Of course, Willock was already ahead of him. And he wasn't even getting time on the pitch as a substitute. So that indicates to me that Newcastle United were ready to offload Sean anyway. Now, Leeds United are the team that, if newly promoted, of course, to the Premier League, who was showing a real big interest in Sean. I can see that happening. Sean wouldn't necessarily have to leave the area. We know he's got a young family, so the commute to Leeds is not very long at all. And certainly the cars that these footballers drive these days, that can get there in no time at all. So I do genuinely believe this move could happen. Now, Sean is apparently being valued by Newcastle United at 10 to 12 million. That, for me, is probably right as well. I think that's a good valuation. We're not really asking too much for Sean. To be honest, I couldn't see any Premier League team paying any more for that. If they look at Sean Longstaff's performances over the last couple of seasons, there's no way that they would dictate a higher valuation fee than that. So again, I can see this being a very good move for the player and, of course, Leeds United. And it does free up wages and squad positions in our team. Now, everybody's going to be thinking, well, hang on a minute. You've got two midfielders leaving. Where does that leave us? You've got Joe Linton, Tonali, Bruno, Lewis Miley, of course, is there. But I think we will replace those players without a shadow of a doubt. I'm not worried about that. But this is what I want to see from Newcastle United. Identifying the players that will not be able to take us to the next level and get them replaced. For me, it's very, very simple to do. Listen to the offers, see if the players are interested, and let's get some deals done when the window opens again in the 6 days' time. Now, one player that Newcastle United are linked with, very quietly, it has to be said, is Harvey Elliott at Liverpool. Now, there was rumblings a few weeks ago that Newcastle United may show an interest in the Liverpool youngster, who, by the way, has made 147 appearances for Liverpool, and he's still only 22-year-old. So this kid comes with a wealth of experience at such a young age, nowhere near his prime yet. I think it will be a hell of a good signing. Now, at the moment, the reporting is saying that the valuation on Harvey Elliott is around 40 million quid. I don't think Newcastle United would pay that for Harvey Elliott, but the going rate for these players is what it is at the minute, whether you agree with it or not. Some of the valuations are absolutely sodden extortionate right now, to the point where you have to wonder, where are we going with these player valuations? Where is it going to end up further down the line? But Harvey Elliott is someone that I think, well, certainly a couple of reports believe that Newcastle have been working quietly behind the scenes to try and get a deal done. Harvey Elliott himself has said that his future at Liverpool is in doubt. It's all up in the air. He doesn't know if he'll be staying at the football club. He's actually come out and said that in an interview, which gives you the indication that maybe Harvey Elliott would look and say, right, I want to try and go elsewhere. I want to go to a project. I want to try and win something. Newcastle would be a good option for Harvey Elliott. And of course, we remember Harvey Elliott for the incident at the end of the Carabao Cup final, didn't we, when Joe Linton sort of manhandled him like some sort of WWE wrestler and threw him out the ring. It was rather funny. But he is a good player, Harvey Elliott. He had a very nasty injury a couple of years ago, of course. I think he broke his leg. It was a horrible injury. But he's bounced back really well, really strongly, which gives you a good indication of the player's mentality to get fit again and get back on the pitch. Now, listen, I'm not sure what you guys think of Harvey Elliott, whether you would agree it's a good deal or not. But the fact that he's admitted he could leave, Newcastle United have had links to him in the past. There is belief that we are still talking to Liverpool regarding Harvey Elliott very quietly behind the scenes. And a lot of you might say, well, yeah, it's about time, doing something behind the scenes, doing it quietly. People would prefer that than air and dirty washing and transfer news until we've signed a player. And I can understand that. So keep your eye on Harvey Elliott, because that's one that might just come out of the blue to everybody, providing Harvey Elliott decides that his future is elsewhere from Anfield. Now, the Joao Pedro situation, guys, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's a few reports coming in saying there's been bids from Saudi Arabia, and those bids are a lot higher than what Newcastle United were prepared to pay for Joao Pedro. You know, you're talking 70, 80 million quid, which we all know and we've all discussed that there's no way that Joao Pedro is worth that much at the minute. 10 goals last season. He is a fantastic footballer, don't get me wrong, but when you're talking about that side of the money, I don't think Newcastle United would pay that. Now, this may well be his agent playing games. We know what agents are like to try and up the fee of the player. Certainly Brighton at the moment have stayed very quiet on the situation. They haven't said anything. We believe that they value the player at around 50 to 60, possibly a little bit lower if Newcastle United were to come in. But again, this might be agent talk to drive the fee up. We've seen it many times before in transfer windows where agents have come in and said there's certain clubs interested or there's bids coming in from XYZ and it's a lot more money than what that original club were willing to pay. And Newcastle United can't get into that kind of squabble with the agent. If they go to Brighton, they make an offer, leave it at that. And if Brighton refuse or the agent says it's not enough, whatever it may be, leave it, because we don't want to get stuck in another tug of war with a Premier League club for a player. But obviously he's going to attract attention. He's an excellent player, Joao Pedro. And yes, I would quite like him at Newcastle. Of course I would. I think he's an improvement on some of the players that we have in the squad. It would also give Eddie Howe the opportunity to tinker with the formation and different tactics, which I think we also need to try a bit next season and not be stuck in a 4-3-3 and because I think we just got a little bit found out. But if we can tinker that with playing people like Pedro and give us different options. So yes, I'd love to see him. But not for the, 70, 80, 90 million quid that has been quoted as bids coming in from Saudi. I think it's ludicrous, but I genuinely believe that may be the agent or whoever stirring the pot to try and improve the valuation fee. So, of course, we know that the agents take a big cut of this, so that's why they tend to put the prices up a little bit. But listen, hopefully we get the deal done. Again, this is expected to rumble on, folks, for Joao Pedro. I can see this going all summer. We know what some of these deals are like, but I'm still believing that Eddie Howe will have his new players in time for start of pre-season. That is exactly where he said he wants his players. He wants a full squad ready ahead of the new season, all working together from the first day onwards. And we have to believe Eddie Howe with that. We have to trust in his judgment and let him do the work behind the scenes. Of course, Mitchell is still there till the end of June. So, 6 days' time it reopens again. So Mitchell's still there for a first part of that window. And I think he's there for the PSR deadline. I'm not sure when that is, so don't quote me on that. But there's still a lot to look forward to, guys. But let me know what you think of the stories today. If you have enjoyed the video, as usual, hit that like button, guys. And please do subscribe if you're new, completely free of charge to do so. Well on our way to 40k now, so we can get there sooner rather than later with your help. Please don't forget to hit the notification bell, though, which will tell you when we upload any videos such as this one or we schedule in our live shows. Don't forget to check the website as well, thetoonreview.com. That is all your merchandise on there. Buy yourself something nice or a family member or a friend and support the channel that way. But thank you very much for watching, folks. We'll see you very soon. Take care.